In this video, I'm going to share with you the 5 secrets I wish I knew when I first started learning game. And fair warning, this is not a PG-13 list. That's because a lot of what you know, or should I say think you know, are lies that were told you to keep you polite, safe, and sexless. Each of these secrets is something I learned from 20 plus years of going out and talking to women and teaching thousands of guys to do the same. It's all very field tested and very, very real. This is 5 secrets I wish I knew when I started learning game. In case you've somehow arrived at this video without knowing who I am, let me give you my very brief backstory. I started going out and talking to women in year 2000 at age 18 as a virgin knowing nothing. I've been doing game, coaching game, teaching game, basically immersed in talking to women and figuring out how the female mind works and how dating works for the last 26 years, and I've taught thousands of guys just like you to do the same. The first major secret I wish I knew when I started out is that it is absolutely possible to take a girl home the same night you meet her. It does not make her a slut, and you can do it on purpose. It's not an accident. In fact, you can do it very consistently. Once you're good, you could take a girl home almost every single night you go out. Now, I happen to know this from direct experience, but given that you don't, let me explain to you how this is possible. Basically, when a girl is deciding whether or not to sleep with you, it's not about the amount of information that she has. It's about the probability from that information that you are a high value guy and a guy she'd want to be with. So if you're giving the girl mixed signals, some of your signals say high value, some say low value, some say cool guy, some say not, some say I can trust him, some say not. It's going to take the girl a very, very long time to sort through all that information and decide if she really likes you enough, if she really trusts you enough, if she wants to take the risk of sleeping with you. But if the information and experience you're giving her is purely good, you're just ticking all the boxes very efficiently, you can actually convince her very, very quickly. It's a little bit like Bayesian statistics. Essentially, if the data is unclear, you need a huge sample size to know what the data means. But if the data is extremely clear, you can know after very few trials what the outcome is going to be. Essentially, in order for a girl to sleep with you, she needs 2 different things. She needs value and she needs comfort. She needs to know that you are a guy of enough status, ability, good genetics, that if you were to get her pregnant, and this is pregnant on the savannas of Africa or in the evolutionary environment, that you would be giving her healthy offspring, an offspring with good genetics likely to succeed in the world. Secondly, though, she wants to feel comfort. And again, this is based on emotions in the evolutionary environment, but she wants to know that you would stick around and help raise that kid, or at least that that kid would somehow be taken care of and provided for so that it could survive. Most guys do a horrible job of both of these. They don't know what value is and they're not conveying value. And they also come off like they have an agenda, so they're conveying no comfort. Or what happens is they try and lead with comfort and then build value later, which fundamentally doesn't work. But if you know from the start that you need to build value, you know how to do it, and then once the girl likes you and is attracted to you, you're able to make her feel comfortable, you can do within a few hours what would take most guys 6 months or a year to achieve. When you know how to communicate directly with a woman's emotions, your message gets through much louder and much clearer. Now you're probably still sitting there thinking, but Todd, if she goes home with you the same night, she's a slut. She must go home with other guys the same night as well. And that's where you're wrong. See, this was a huge misconception in game for a long time. There's this idea that if a girl goes home with you, it's fool's mate. It was just luck. She was just easy. You caught her at the right place at the right time. That's actually not true. There's this belief among men that I call like the Groucho Marx fallacy, which is like, I don't want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member. If the girl went home with me same night, she must not have standards. Well, that may be true if she goes home with you same night, if you're a low value guy. But as you become a higher and higher value guy, as more and more girls are attracted to you, it becomes more and more normal. So weirdly, if a girl went home with 18-year-old virgin me the same night, they probably were a slut. But if they go home with me 26 years into game, same night, well, now they probably had a lot of good information. They were taken on a journey that no guy's ever taken them on before, and that's why they ended up making that decision. Very concretely, if a girl goes home with just any guy the same night, then she is easy to sleep with. If a girl goes home with Cristiano Ronaldo or Leonardo DiCaprio the same night, well, now maybe she has standards. Beyond just value, a lot of high value guys actually don't have a plan at all for how they would even take a girl home the same night. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a guy talking to a girl, she's completely into him, she's willing to go home, and he just says, let me take your phone number, and walks away because he doesn't know the next steps. So it is partly about value. It's also partly about having a plan, a step-by-step structure for exactly how you're going to escalate the conversation verbally, physically, and logistically in order to make things happen in a smooth way so that the girl has a good experience. So nowadays, if I go out, I'm going to take home a hot girl most of the time. But when I first started out, that was anything but the case. I would have boring platonic conversations that went nowhere. I would take phone numbers instead of pursuing things to dates. If I did get on dates, I'd have boring conversations. I didn't know how to kiss a girl. I didn't know how to lead her physically. It was pretty much impossible that I would ever take a girl home same night. Even if she was coming on to me, I probably would have intentionally slowed it down because it just wasn't in my reality. So what's the takeaway here? Well, I want you to know that it is possible and I want you to work towards it. It is completely fine to take phone numbers, go on dates, bring girls home, second date, third date, whatever. But if the girl wants to go home with you same night and you push it off to a future date, there's a chance that she'll flake, some other girl will meet her, things won't go down. It's just silly not to take the opportunities presented to you. The next secret I absolutely wish I knew when I started out is that tension is a good thing. You want tension. I cannot tell you over 2 decades of coaching how many times I've seen students talking to a girl, it's going completely well, and there's a little bit of tension, and the guy bails because he's nervous. He feels a little tense, he thinks it's awkward, and he says, cool, nice to meet you, or I gotta go, or so I'll leave you to it. Meanwhile, the girl was completely into him, wanted the conversation to continue. If anything, she was probably too nervous and aroused to think of anything to say because she's liking him so much, and he just walks away because of, it feels a little awkward. Tension, nervousness, awkwardness, all of this is a good thing. If someone is too comfortable in a situation, it's because they don't care. If there is a little bit of tension, if there's a little bit of anticipation, if there's a little anxiety between you and the girl, oftentimes that just means you're both invested. That just means you both care. And in particular, if there's tension and a man-to-woman vibe or tension and sexuality, that is the very thing that leads to kissing, leads to sex. When I first started approaching women, if there was an awkward silence or a little tension, I would bail. Now, to my credit, at least I would bail and ask for a phone number. I'd be like, okay, cool, it was nice talking to you. What's your number? Bye. And I would leave and hopefully I'd get a phone number. Now, when there's tension, I stay. In fact, I actively create tension. On my dates, I actively create periods where there's silence and we're looking at each other's eyes right before the kiss. Or actively, if we're walking, I will stop the girl, kind of make eye contact, get face to face, have an awkward silence, have a tense pause before I will potentially escalate. And guess what? Tension works. Tension is emotion. Tension is arousal. The biggest mistake most guys make is being emotionless in their game, being too logical, too obvious, too boring. If tension is anything, it's not boring. Now, I'm not talking obviously tension where the girl's overtly angry at you, she's glaring at you, she's telling you to fuck off, at least not in a playful way. Obviously, there is bad tension. Now, most of the time, assuming you haven't been overtly rude or a total dickhead, if you're having a normal man-to-woman conversation, there's some tension and she's not trying to leave, that's good tension, not bad tension. You need to acknowledge that and take it as such. Take it as a compliment, take it as a sign that things are going well, not a sign you need to bail. A little asterisk, a little extra on this point. I said tension's a good thing. Shit tests are also a good thing. When a girl is playfully challenging you, that is a good thing. In fact, a lot of times shit tests come out of tension. If she's feeling positive tension, she's a little unsure of you, she may give you what's called a shit test. And instead of running away, you should think of this as an opportunity, because when you pass a shit test, your value goes through the roof, that positive tension explodes, and very good things can happen. In fact, when it comes to shit testing game, usually beginner guys get almost no shit tests because they're not creating tension. Intermediate guys get lots of shit tests because they're creating tension and the girl's unsure. Advanced guys still get shit tests, but a little bit less than intermediates because they are creating tension, but the girl's more sure about them and more overall kind of logically committed to them. In any case, shit tests and tension are very, very good signs that you're moving in the right direction with your game. The next secret I'm gonna share with you is something that almost nobody knows and almost nobody does, and therefore it's a huge opportunity to set yourself apart. When I first started doing game, I had a rule, which was every hot girl gets approached. And I thought I was following that rule, but I actually wasn't. What I was actually doing was approaching every hot girl who was by herself. And that was sad because most hot girls are not by themselves most of the time. Most of the time, they are in groups. So here's the secret. You can and should approach girls in groups. In fact, for the very hottest girls, it's not only probably the only time you're ever gonna find them, but it's also a huge advantage because they will open better in a group environment than they probably will on their own. That is not something society or Hollywood movies will ever teach you. In fact, even for guys who go out, if you just did day game, you could do day game your whole life, only approach girls alone, and never know it's possible to approach groups. If you were to go through your life and catalog the times that you see truly attractive women, I bet about 90% or more of them would be in groups. It is very rare to find truly attractive women out in the world completely alone, especially if they're not actively doing something. So if you are able to approach groups, that's 10 times as many hot girls you can approach. And don't even get me started on night game. If you go out to bars and clubs and are trying to find girls alone, you could walk around the entire night and barely find anybody. And the ones you're gonna find are probably mostly not very attractive. Long story short, it's no exaggeration to say that my entire game changed when I went from approaching girls alone to girls in groups. Just the very fact I knew you could walk up to a group opened up so many possibilities. It was exponentially better for that one change. Now, I'm not going to explain right here exactly the optimal way to approach groups because I have other videos on this channel that are specifically about that. And by the way, good reminder, if you want to really get good at game, you should like and subscribe to this channel and come back and learn those lessons. But even if you weren't very good at approaching groups, just doing it badly would still be better than not doing it at all. Never mind doing it well, which is what you should aspire to. You'd be shocked how receptive girls in groups are. And actually, that brings me back to a point I said at the start. Sometimes it's easier to approach a hot girl in a group, and here's why. If you approach a girl who's a 10 out of 10, she oftentimes knows she's a 10 out of 10. She's oftentimes getting a lot of attention, and she's conditioned to turn away male attention very quickly because she just has to live a normal life. But let's say you open that very same girl, but now she's in a group with her friend who's a 7 and her friend who's an 8. Well, now, if you open and the 10 would have rejected you, but the 7 and the 8 like you, well, now by virtue of being friends with them, she's kind of locked in. She now is exposed to your personality, your charm. She has to find out what a cool person you are. It gives you this position of great leverage to convey your personality, and it gives you a situation where you actually get the time of day. You actually get a chance with that really hot girl. Beyond that, if her friends are attracted to you, you're approaching with social proof, which gives you a huge value bump as well. So oftentimes, you may be able to approach and get a number or a date from a girl in a group when you would have been outright rejected if she were by herself. And by the way, putting secrets 1 and 3 together, you can actually open and take girls home even when they're in a group of other girls. Oftentimes, yes, you may be getting a phone number, but even when they're in a group, you can take them home same night. There is a process for all of it. And I did say I'm not going to teach you all of group game right here. We'll just take your opener that you would say to one girl and make it collective. So let's say you use a direct open. You normally say, hey, you're cute, I want to meet you, which by the way, not the best open, but it'll work, right? For the group, you would say, hey, you guys are cute together, I wanted to meet you. Just take whatever you'd say to the one girl and make it collective. That will open groups for you, no problem. So that brings me to secret number 4, which is that women are far more sexual and sexually open than you would possibly imagine. Let me give you some examples. Most women are very okay with being with another woman. In fact, most women have probably kissed their friends. A lot of women, far more than you would think, have had threesomes. Also, women are actually okay with being with multiple men at once. In fact, a lot of women fantasize about it. And in fact, women think about sex constantly. As much as you think about sex, and as much as you think that you're a dirty, horny, nasty man for thinking about sex all the time, women are thinking about it more than you are. I know that sounds crazy. It is true. Now, if this shocks you, here's probably why. If you come off as the type of guy who is sexually inexperienced, uncomfortable with sex, and will judge women for sex, women will present themselves to you in a particular way that makes themselves not seem very sexual because they don't want to be judged. As you start to come off more as a guy who has a lot of sex and is comfortable with sex, women will talk to you much more openly, confess things to you much more openly, and do things in front of you much more openly than they do with guys who they think are not as comfortable sexually. So why is this important? Well, remember point number 1 about girls going home with you quickly? If you seem sexually uncomfortable, inexperienced, sexually awkward, they probably are not going home with you very quickly at all. If you seem sexually uncomfortable, they're not going to have sex with you for dates and dates and dates, if ever. Most likely, they'll just cut it off before actually getting to that point with you. Secondly, and this is really interesting, if you want to have an honest relationship with a woman, do you really want to have a relationship where the woman feels like she has to lie to you in order to protect your ego or in order to look a certain way? Or would you rather girls feel they can be honest and open and relaxed with you? Trust me, when girls feel like they can open up with you, when they can express their true desires with you, not only does it make the sex better, it makes the whole relationship better, more relaxed, and actually with a lot more trust in it as well. Beyond all that, when she's evaluating you sexually, it's not just on this like esoteric concept of value. She's also evaluating what the experience of having sex with you would be like. And if you seem like you'd be tense and awkward in bed, it doesn't seem like a positive sexual experience for her. She's less likely to do it. So how does this practically influence my game? Well, a couple things. Number one, I'm much more willing to talk, joke, and bring up the subject of sex early on in a conversation, and I'm much more likely to flirt in general rather than being super logical. But also, when things are going well, I feel much more permission to make things sexual. I feel much more permission to touch the girl, kiss the girl, move things forward, because I know that the girl is very sexual and very horny as well. Secret number 5 is something that actually took me decades to learn. And in fact, I learned this from being a coach. I learned this from my students. Because as I've gotten better and better at game, my game has become more effective, more visually appealing, more arousing, more interesting, more fun, more flirtatious. And so it's very natural to think that adding more of those things makes your game better and better and better. But in coaching, what you see sometimes is you see students go in and do almost nothing because they simply don't know how to do much game, and yet they shockingly get a result. Students who are just learning game will have 80% a boring, lame conversation with just little sprinkles of game you've taught them, and it's enough. Somehow, it's enough. In fact, a lot of times, the fact that there's not so much game in their game actually makes the girls trust them more and actually builds a lot of connection. So here's the secret. No game at all doesn't work. If you're boring, bland, obvious, logical, you are not arousing the girl, you're gonna be friend zoned at best. Tons and tons of game does work. It absolutely does. You can take lots of girls home that way, you can have lots of fun that way, but it may be too much for certain girls. It may come off as very unusual and break trust, and you may come off as too much of a player. The sweet spot is somewhere in the middle, where you are doing enough game that things are progressing rapidly and fluidly, but you're doing enough normal that it doesn't feel outside of her reality. And as you get better and better at game, and when you can find a tease on everything, and every single story of your life has been told on so many dates that it's honed and perfected and interesting, well, it actually makes sense to chill, breathe, relax, be more normal, calm things down so that you don't appear too crazy good. See, if a girl's experience of guys is guys are kind of at this level, and then you're at this level, she appreciates it, she enjoys it, but she's also like, there's something a little strange going on here. And you can come off a little too playerish, she might not trust you, and for that reason, she might make it take a really, really long time for things to progress with you. On the other hand, if you can just chill out and be a little closer, if this is the normal, you can be just a little above the normal, the girl may actually appreciate that, respond better to that, and trust you much more that way. So once you're really good at game, once game is a habit, it's actually nice. You can relax, chill out, not work so hard, and let the girl get more invested. In fact, the best game looks like the girl getting very invested. You need to game and be hyper attractive enough to get the girl into you, enough to get the girl to invest. But then the best game from there looks like holding the interaction at the lowest energy you can, having her commit, her do as much effort, and her do as much work as possible to keep things going forward. And then you just kind of guide it in the right direction, just nudge it back on course if it's getting off course. And this sort of effortless game is actually truly high value. It's the way that an actually high value guy who got there naturally rather than by learning formulaic game would act. So the secret is you need to know the skills of game so that when the conversation is getting too boring, you can nudge it in the right direction and keep it progressing. But once you're really good at the skills of game, you want to use them sparingly. They should be the seasoning, not the meal. The game is not the steak. The game is the salt or the steak sauce that makes it truly great. All right, so those are my 5 secrets garnered from 20 years in field doing game. Let me know which one surprised you the most, which one you like the most, and also if you have any questions about them in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.